There are over 40,000 individual political units here in the USA, and that excludes school districts. There's one federal here in DC, 50 states, and all the rest are divided between county, municipality and towns. Each of them have their own level of lawmaking ability. Now, as some parts of the US feeling frustrated that they are underserved by broadband, it's little wonder that some of these communities, albeit a very small percentage of them, are actually considering and indeed running and operating their own broadband networks.
They see broadband as the electricity of this century. They view it not as a consumer service necessarily or only a consumer service, but as an engine to drive economic development, educational opportunity. Broadband is critical to getting access to affordable modern health care right across the board. It is a vital platform for everything, and they feel that in order to have access to the best that life has to offer, they have to have more robust broadband than is currently available from the private sector. In some cases, there's no broadband available at all. Cable and telecommunications companies are not, in the view of the communities, providing the services that the communities want, but don't want to either provide what the communities want or allow the communities to proceed themselves. That has created legislative tensions, it's created tensions at the local level, it's created political tensions, and we've had to work through it over the years.
Is it just the cable cos or is it telcos as well?
It has been, I think it's fair to say, both the cable and telecommunications industries that have been the proponents of initiatives to retard the progress of municipal communications networks.
And is every state, every town and city legally able to provide broadband?
It depends on where you go and what the particular laws of the state are. So one must examine the issues from a state-to-state basis. We have about 18 states that have enacted legislation that have some impact on the ability of communities to go forward. Some are more stringent than others, but most of America does permit its municipalities to provide communication services.
So the arguments against municipal involvement in broadband, these aren't new, are they?
When we were in the period of electrification, the electric power utilities made almost exactly the same arguments a century ago as the cable and telecommunications providers make now. Here is Moody's magazine from October 1906 on a symposium on municipal ownership. Let me read you the title of the chapters that were submitted by opponents of municipal ownership. Municipal ownership, a delusion. Municipal ownership, a business problem. Municipal ownership, uneconomic. Municipal ownership, always a failure. Municipal ownership, unfair. You can rip those titles right from Moody's and paste them into today's headlines, and the arguments are exactly the same.
So would you say that the US needs a coherent strategy, an overall vision for broadband?
I think you're on to something that's very important. We Americans don't have a clear vision of what we can do with high-capacity networks. There have been a number of recent polls suggesting that Americans are generally satisfied with the crap that passes for broadband in this country. And that's because they don't appreciate what we can do with more capacity, more reliable broadband. One of the fears that I think that some of the opponents to municipal networks have is that having examples that show what higher capacity can do casts a shadow on the networks that have less capacity and puts pressure on them to upgrade, and that takes money and that takes commitments of shareholders. Put this all together, I think that if and when and how we acquire a bigger vision of what we need, when that happens, all the rest will follow.
Can you give us an idea of the different types of models that we're seeing and the ones that are working?
Most of them involve public-private partnerships of some kind, and that in itself is a very broad range. For example, we once provided to Congress evidence of how the fiber system in the borough of Kutztown, Pennsylvania operates, and it turns out that the city owns and operates the fiber to the home network, but it has 6 different partners among private sector providers providing services over that network to the public, and that's not uncommon. That said, we have found so far that municipal networks that provide service directly to consumers tend to be more successful than municipalities that try to provide only wholesale service to other retailers or that lease dark fiber. As to the future, we now have, through the stimulus program, $8 billion pouring into the sector. There will be many, many permutations, regional models. We'll learn from all those. We'll go forward. We'll grow over the course of the next couple of years, perhaps another 5 years. The way over the last couple of years, we've grown at least 5 years. So I am very optimistic about what lies ahead for us.
This is Guy Daniels for Connected States of America in Washington, D.C.